Let's break it down straight from the hill to your hometown. No spin, no hype, just facts we find. AI's on the case, no truth left behind. Laws are written, deals are made. Who's got your back, who's throwing shade? We cut through the noise, decode the text, keeping it real. Congress in context, Congress in context, shining the light, breaking it down so you know what's right. Policies, votes, who's working for you? We bring the facts, the power is you.
All right, ready to dive deep.
Always.
Today we're cracking open the Congressional Record for February 12th, 2025.
Oh, this is going to be good.
It's like we're right there on the House floor, soaking it all in.
Yeah, most folks think of this thing as a snooze fest, right?
Totally, just a bunch of boring legal mumbo-jumbo.
But trust me, it's way more exciting than you think.
It's a total gold mine.
It is.
If you know where to look, you can see the gears of government turning, those little moments of drama, those compromises, the power struggles.
Right, like you get to see how the sausage gets made.
Exactly.
Except this sausage is, laws and policies that affect our everyday lives.
So what are some of the juiciest bits we're going to uncover today?
Well, one big thing that jumps out is this trend of House Republicans really taking aim at what they're calling the administrative state.
So, like, what are they saying? The government's gotten too big or something?
Pretty much, yeah. They're arguing that federal agencies are issuing all these regulations without enough oversight from Congress.
So it's a power struggle.
Oh, absolutely. And it's been brewing for a while.
I bet.
A prime example of this is this bill they're pushing, H.R. 77, the Midnight Rules Relief Act.
Okay, break down for us non-lawyers. What's that all about?
Well, in a nutshell, it would let Congress kind of bundle together their disapproval of a whole bunch of regulations that pop up in the last year of a president's term.
So instead of going through each rule one by one, they can just say nope to a whole bunch at once.
Exactly.
Seems efficient.
It does.
But also kind of like a blunt instrument, right?
Yeah, and that's where the debate gets really interesting.
I bet.
You got supporters like Representative Kiley who argue this is about Congress reclaiming its rightful authority.
Putting those unelected bureaucrats in their place.
Exactly. They say elected officials, not some faceless agency, should have the final say.
Makes sense, but I'm sure there's another side to this.
Oh, yeah, big time. You have folks like Representative Nadler who are super worried this is just a way to sneak through controversial stuff without proper scrutiny.
So it's like a power grab disguised as efficiency.
That's one way to look at it.
And did Representative Nadler have any choice words about this?
Oh, he did not hold back. He called it an anti-government deregulatory agenda under the cover of darkness.
Oof, shots fired.
Yeah. So you can see how this one little bill taps into this fundamental question of how much power the government should have in our lives and who gets to call the shots.
Heavy stuff. But hey, it can't be all doom and gloom in the Congressional Record, right?
Well, I did find a moment that made me chuckle.
Spill the tea.
Representative Biggs was teasing Representative Raskin for, you guessed it, bringing up billionaires and Elon Musk.
Oh, come on. Is that really still a talking point?
Apparently.
I can picture the eye rolls happening on the House floor.
These little human moments that remind us there are actual people behind all the political jargon.
And that sometimes they just like to poke fun at each other, just like the rest of us.
Exactly. And, it's a good reminder that politicians often fall back on those familiar talking points, even if they're not super relevant to the actual issue at hand.
It's like they all have a script.
And they just plug in the buzzword of the day.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how much of this is genuine debate and how much is just performance.
A good question to ponder.
Now, you said we'd see some glimmers of bipartisanship today. Where's the common ground hiding in all this partisan bickering?
Well, believe it or not, both sides seem pretty concerned about potential cuts to the Department of Education.
Really?
Yeah, you see these passionate speeches from both sides about the role of government and education, especially when it comes to funding and making sure everyone has access to quality schooling, no matter their background.
So it sounds like there's some agreement on the importance of education, even if they disagree on the details.
Exactly. And you see this especially when it comes to protecting the most vulnerable students, low-income folks, students with disabilities.
So there's a shared concern about making sure everyone has a fair shot.
It seems so, which is heartening to see in this often divided political landscape.
It is. It gives you a little bit of hope,
Yeah.
that maybe we can still find common ground even when we disagree on the approach.
Exactly. And speaking of protecting the vulnerable, there's also strong bipartisan support for the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Those are the folks who crack down on those predatory lenders, right?
The very same.
Yeah, I've heard they've been doing some amazing work, making sure big banks don't take advantage of everyday folks.
Absolutely.
They've been a real champion for consumers.
They have, and there's a lot of talk in the Congressional Record about how important it is to keep them strong and independent.
So even in today's political climate, there are still some things that unite us,
It seems so.
like protecting folks from getting ripped off.
Right, making sure everyone has a fair shake.
Now, we got to talk about the elephant in the room, the potential nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Oh boy, yeah.
This one's causing quite a stir.
It is, and for good reason. His stance on vaccines has sparked some serious debate.
Yeah, this is one where we're going to have to dive deep into the arguments on both sides.
We will, and we'll explore what it all means for public health.
Sounds like we've got our work cut out for us. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll tackle this Kennedy nomination head on. Okay, so this Robert F. Kennedy Jr. nomination,
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
It is. It really is. And, you see that reflected in the Congressional Record for sure.
Absolutely. Both sides are bringing some serious heat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got folks straight up calling him dangerous.
Really?
Yeah, there's one senator who called him a threat to American medical innovation.
Wow, that's,
Strong words.
yeah, that's a pretty strong statement.
Mm-hmm.
What's driving that kind of reaction?
Well, a lot of it comes down to his stance on vaccines, specifically all that controversy around vaccines and autism.
Yeah, that's been a hot topic for a long time,
It has.
and there's a lot of misinformation floating around out there.
And that's what his critics are worried about, They say putting Kennedy in charge of HHS, it could really undermine public trust in vaccines.
And we've seen how important that is, especially during the pandemic.
Absolutely. And then you've got the whole conflict of interest thing.
Right, because of his lawsuits against those pharmaceutical companies.
Exactly. It raises questions about his ability to be impartial when it comes to vaccine safety and regulations.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a concern.
And there are also concerns about some of his past statements, where he kind of downplays the seriousness of certain diseases.
Like measles, for instance.
Yeah. Measles, whooping cough.
Those can be really dangerous, especially for kids.
They can. And his critics worry that kind of rhetoric could lead to people being less cautious, less likely to get vaccinated.
So it's not just about his personal beliefs, it's about the potential impact on public health policy.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've heard the concerns, but what about the other side? Why are some people supporting this nomination?
Well, his supporters see him as someone who's really committed to shaking things up, They like that he's not afraid to challenge the status quo.
They see him as a disruptor.
Yeah, exactly. They see him as this outsider who can take on the establishment and really push for change, especially when it comes to things like healthcare costs and access to care.
So they're looking beyond the vaccine issue and focusing on his broader vision for healthcare.
Right. They see him as someone who's going to fight for everyday Americans and their right to affordable quality care.
Interesting. So you've got two very different perspectives, both with valid points.
It's definitely a complex issue.
It is. It makes you really think about what qualities we should prioritize in someone who holds such a powerful position.
And remember, this is just a snapshot of the conversation happening in the Congressional Record. There's so much more to unpack.
Right. This is just a starting point
It is.
for folks who want to dive deeper.
Okay, so zooming out a little bit, there's another big theme that keeps popping up, and that's this whole debate about the role of government.
Ah, yeah, that old chestnut.
Right. Like, how much should the government be involved in our lives, especially when it comes to the economy?
Yeah, that seems to be the million-dollar question.
It is, and you see it playing out in all sorts of ways in the Congressional Record.
Like with that Midnight Rules Relief Act we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. That's a prime example of this push for smaller government, less regulation, giving more power back to individuals and businesses.
And on the other side, you've got folks arguing that regulations are essential, to protect consumers, workers, the environment.
Right. They're saying the government needs to step in to make sure things are fair, to prevent exploitation, to keep people safe.
It's that classic tension between individual freedom and collective responsibility.
That's it, exactly. And there are no easy answers.
It's a tough one. You can see both sides of it.
You can.
But it's important to have these discussions, to really wrestle with these ideas and figure out what kind of society we want to build.
Absolutely.
And this debate it's not just theoretical. It has real-world consequences.
Oh, for sure.
Like, take those proposed cuts to the National Institutes of Health.
Yeah, that sparked a lot of concern.
A lot. People are worried about the impact on medical research.
Yeah.
Those breakthroughs that could lead to new treatments and cures.
It's a huge deal, potentially delaying progress on diseases like cancer, Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that these policy decisions made in Washington, they have a ripple effect.
They do.
They touch all of our lives.
And speaking of things that touch all of our lives, there's a lot of talk in the Congressional Record about the economy, specifically how expensive everything is getting.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm feeling it at the grocery store.
Me too. And you see that reflected in these speeches, People are worried about housing costs, the price of food, gas.
It's a real struggle for a lot of families.
It is, and it raises questions about what the government can do to help, to address these economic anxieties and make sure people can afford the basics.
Yeah, like, are there policies that could ease the burden on working families?
That's a big part of the conversation.
It's a tough one.
It is, but it's important to have these discussions, to acknowledge the struggles people are facing and try to find solutions.
So even with all this partisan bickering and economic anxiety, are there any bright spots? Any signs that our elected officials can actually work together?
Well, one thing that gives me hope is the way they talk about veterans, There's this real sense of respect and gratitude for their service.
Yeah, you see these moving tributes honoring their sacrifice. And it seems to cut across party lines.
It does. It's a reminder that there are still things that unite us as Americans.
And it's not just about honoring veterans. It's about making sure they get the support they need when they come home.
Absolutely. There's a lot of talk about improving access to health care, mental health services, job training.
It's about taking care of those who have sacrificed so much for our country.
And it's not just veterans, There are these heartwarming moments where they recognize everyday heroes, people who are making a difference in their communities.
Oh, yeah, like teachers, volunteers, first responders.
Exactly. People who are stepping up to help others, to make their community stronger.
It's a nice reminder that there's still so much good happening out there.
There is, and it's a good counterbalance to all the negativity and division we see in the news.
It is.
It gives you a little bit of faith in humanity restored.
So we've been through a lot today. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly.
Oh, we have.
But one thing's for sure, the Congressional Record, it's a treasure trove of information.
It is.
It's a window into how our government works, the issues that are being debated, the people who are shaping our future.
And it's all there for the public to see.
It's public record.
Anyone can access it.
And we encourage everyone to do so.
Please do.
Go check it out for yourselves, see what your representatives are saying, what bills they're supporting.
You might be surprised by what you find.
And in our next segment, we'll give you some practical tips on how to do just that, how to navigate the Congressional Record and make your voice heard. How to navigate the Congressional Record and make your voice heard. Okay, so we've journeyed through this massive Congressional Record.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but we've seen some fascinating stuff, from those heated debates
To those little moments of humanity.
to tributes.
Yeah, the tributes are always special.
But now we got to bring it back to the listener.
Absolutely.
Why should they care about all this?
Right, because it's one thing to just understand what's happening in Washington.
But it's another thing entirely to actually engage with it.
It is, and the Congressional Record, it can actually be a really empowering tool for that.
Okay, so how do we go beyond just being informed and actually make our voices heard?
Well, first off, keep using the Congressional Record.
It's a goldmine of information.
It is, and it's all public,
Anyone can access it.
Yeah, you can go online, search by topic, see what your representatives are saying.
So I can see how my rep voted on a specific bill.
Exactly. You can even set up alerts so you get notified when there's new legislation on issues you care about.
That's super helpful.
It is. So no more excuses for not knowing what's going on.
No more. I didn't know that was happening. Okay, so let's say I'm fired up about an issue.
Yeah.
I've done my research in the Congressional Record. I know how my representatives are voting.
Yeah.
What's the next step?
Contact them.
Just pick up the phone and call.
Call, email, write a letter. Show up at their town hall meetings.
So many options.
There are. And, I think people sometimes underestimate how much power they have as constituents.
Yeah. We think our voice doesn't matter.
But it does. Your representatives, they need to hear from you.
They work for us.
They do. And when they hear the same message from enough people, it can really make a difference.
It can change the course of legislation.
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is,
Yeah.
don't just sit there and complain.
Don't inform.
Get informed.
Use the congressional record
Yes.
and then take action.
Take action, contact your representatives, make your voice heard.
That's how we make this democracy work.
It is.
Well said. All right, that's it for this deep dive into the congressional record.
It's been a journey. It has. And we hope you've learned something along the way.
I hope so too.
Remember, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, keep exploring, keep learning, keep engaging.
Stay curious and stay involved, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.